Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Saints Insider Postgame Show. I'm Zach Ewing, joined by Jeff Duncan, and we are here to talk about a victory, Jeff. Saints upset the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 24-20 and earned their third win of the year. And I guess you could argue the Carolina game, but I thought their most impressive win of the year, given the circumstances, given the fact that the Bucs are desperate for a win themselves, four-time reigning NFC South champs. Saints just went out there and outplayed the Bucs.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this was even more impressive because of the way it transpired. The Bucs had a couple chances to perform like they do so often, where they win these close games and pull something out of the hat. And the Saints kind of came through every time and made the big plays. A lot of young guys stepping up in key clutch situations, and obviously none bigger than Tyler Shough. I thought it was his best performance as a starter, and the kind of thing that he can build on confidence-wise. And every time he has one of these kind of performances, Zach, I think it only builds confidence not only in himself, but everyone around him and everyone in the organization can start to be confident that they've got their quarterback of the future.
Yeah, absolutely. We're showing your comments and questions live here on the Saints Insider Postgame Show as you continue to drop those in. We'll be joined a little later by Rod Walker and also our guys on the scene there at Raymond James Stadium, Luke Johnson and Matthew Paris. So it was kind of a weird one. The Saints finally got off to a good start, Jeff. That first drive was really impressive. They go right down the field, end it with Devin Neal's first career touchdown run. And then, like in typical Saints fashion, that's the one time all day the defense can't stop anybody, and the Bucs come right down the field and tie it. And you just think, oh man, okay, well, they finally scored on offense, but it's just going to be another long day. But this game turned into a slog. The weather had a lot to do with that. It was raining really hard there in the second and third quarters of this game, and Saints missed a long field goal, which probably had something to do with the weather, and the Bucs made theirs. But it's like 10-7 at halftime, and you're going. I mean, at that point, to me, it felt like anybody's game.
Yeah, I felt like a couple times where the Saints defense kind of stiffened in the red zone and forced field goals. I thought those were key points in this game when they made a turnover, I think, and then held them to a field goal after that, after Shough and Olave kind of miscommunication. I felt like they defensively had another very good game. I think the weather helped. There's no doubt that was a downpour. It was difficult conditions. But the Saints, in those key situations, again, Zach, third down, red zone, goal line, they made more big plays than Tampa, and that just hasn't been the case for this team all year.
No, I mean, to your point, they stopped Tampa Bay 5 times on fourth down. And 2 of those were the end of each half. There was the Hail Mary that was on a fourth down play at the end of the first half, and then obviously the play that ended the game on Tampa Bay's final drive. But in between, there was, I think it was twice 4th and 1 and once 4th and 2, and the Saints got the stop. They also allowed a 4th and 1, I think, at one point. But I mean, they got the stop 3 times, all near midfield. They got points off of at least 2 of those ensuing drives, giving the offense good field position. And that's the type of play that New Orleans, quite frankly, has not made very often, really going back 2 years now. And they made them today. And then I think, the other thing we got to talk about is Tyler Shough. Like he made it work. It wasn't the best day in the world statistics wise. I think he threw for 144 yards, no touchdowns, and had the pick. But he ran for 2 touchdowns. He had 55 yards on the ground. And just as important to me, like again, you're talking about those third downs. The defense was getting stops, and more often than not, Tyler Shough was making plays on third down.
Yeah, especially late when they had to run some clock. That was key. Converted 2 big third downs on that last drive and really put the Bucs up against it. Both those were third and kind of medium or long that he converted. He just plays with a real poise. It's something that's very noticeable. Notice a lot of people on social media commenting on that. And I think that poise, is infectious to his teammates. His teammates see that and see that the moment's not too big for him. He doesn't really get too high or too low, even when he was having these big touchdown runs. And, he doesn't go crazy. He's not quite Baker Mayfield, but he did definitely, I think Luke and Matt had a great point today. He Baker Mayfield the Bucs today was a great way to describe what he did.
Yeah, he did. I mean, it just there were so many third downs where the Bucs, I think, thought they were about to get off the field, and Shough just made a play, and that happened enough times to where all of a sudden you look up and they Saints really almost ran the clock out. In fact, I think they would have run most of the clock out on that final drive. They caught kind of a bad break. Tampa Bay committed an offside penalty on the third down completion to Devon Vele, and that allowed the clock to stop, and the Bucs could use their final timeout before the 2-minute warning. And then by the time the Saints had to punt it away, there was still almost 2 minutes left. But the defense came up. I see a couple of comments here. I think Hakeem Batiste and also John McElroy talking about complimentary football. That's how you win games in this league. And we haven't seen it enough. I think Kellen Moore deserves some credit. I thought his play calling fit the game better today. It always helps when you can run the ball, but you have to scheme that in. And the situations in which he called plays seem to fit better today than maybe they have in weeks past.
Yeah, I really liked, the getting Tyler Shough involved in the run game. I think that was definitely something they noticed in game planning that Tampa Bay was not prepared for. And as you can see, Tyler Shough's, we've talked about this before, Zach. I mean, he's an athletic guy for being 6'5". I mean, he can run. He's got, I think, good instincts with the ball. And he got down a couple of times today at the right time. That's a weapon that the Saints really haven't had much in their arsenal over the years. I mean, Spencer Rattler's a good runner as well, but you didn't have that with Derek Carr. You didn't have that with Jameis Winston, not with Drew Brees. So it's kind of something new to the game. I know they've used it a little bit with obviously Taysom Hill over the years, but this is something I expect to see a lot of going forward. And they just have to be mindful that, he needs to get down and not take those hits. That's what got him in trouble in college when he was dealing with a lot of injuries.
Yeah, there was kind of that scary moment on his last touchdown run where he lowers his shoulder and he laid down on his back just for a second, I think just catching his breath. But there was a moment where you're going, oh, did he just hurt himself doing that? Which is right. Not what the Saints need. Because, Jeff, frankly, this team could go on a run here. You look at the rest of the schedule, the final 4 games, home versus Panthers, home versus Jets, who are a wreck right now and down to their third string quarterback. Then you're at the Titans, who got a win today, but are certainly among the worst teams in the league. And then you end the year at the Falcons, who also look like they're a wreck. So I'm not saying the Saints are going to go win every game or anything, but I think it's kind of exciting times for them to be able to go see what this young roster can do against beatable competition.
Yeah, I think it's got to be the easiest schedule in the league down the stretch. I can't imagine anybody having a harder, an easier schedule than that. And look, they're out of the playoffs. Right now, you're just playing for 2026, getting those reps in, build confidence. And the last thing they need, as you and I have said, is Tyler Shough to get hurt. So to me, that's the top priority. Get him as much time on task as you can, build confidence. We're seeing a connection now between him and Devon Vele. This is the second game in a row where Vele's led him in receiving. And I think that's going to continue to blossom going forward, that relationship. And they're overcoming a lot of injuries too. I mean, they're playing without Alvin Kamara. They had some banged up linemen today. We're really down on the line. And that's when Shough, I think, put the team on his back a little bit. I mean, he pulled a Baker Mayfield. He scrambled when he had to, made the passes when he had to. He won this game for them offensively. And then the defense, which I know we're going to talk about soon, but they keep being overlooked. I think they're playing very well right now under Brandon Staley.
Yeah, let's talk about the defense. Bucs get 301 total yards, but they needed a lot of plays to do that. They ran 69 plays, so it's only 4.4 yards per play. You held Mayfield down. But we mentioned this earlier. The Saints didn't have a single sack, by the way. Mayfield's a tough guy to sack. But they forced a turnover. And then the big number to me, the 2 big numbers, 3 of 13 on third down for the Bucs, 2 of 7 on fourth down.
Yeah, situational football. They were good in the red zone. I know it was only 1 of 2 statistically, but I thought that was a critical part of the game when they held them out for scoring a touchdown. So they had to settle for a field goal. But they moved him off his spot a lot. Baker Mayfield does that a lot instinctively, and he just does not throw quite as well. And let's face it, the conditions clearly played a role in the game today. Both teams were playing in it, but it seemed to affect the Bucs more than it did the Saints. especially Mayfield. Let some balls fly on him. I mean, that last pass he threw to Otten at the end of the game, it was a terrible pass. That should have been an easy first down. And he threw it right at his ankles and really kind of bailed the Saints out there. So I think, that look, the Bucs are a team I think that's in trouble. They have not been playing well for a month, and it caught up to them today. They've been kind of trying to survive on these miracle wins and the Houdini finishes with Mayfield, and he couldn't pull it out today. The Saints made more plays than they did.
Looking through a couple of comments here. Zealous Ideal said he loves to see Vele coming along. Mitch says offensively and defensively the best game of the year. And yeah, the Saints offense finally scores more than 20 points. Only time they've scored more points than today was against the Giants, and that, of course, had a defensive touchdown involved. So John McElroy says, if anything, this takes us out of the QB discussion in the draft. I really think we're starting to get to that as consensus, Dunk. Like, I think the way Shough is playing, you're not penciling him in as the quarterback for 10 years or anything, but I think certainly going into next year, you don't need to go use a top 10 pick on another quarterback right now.
No, and that's a real luxury, right? You've got him on a rookie contract, a second-round rookie contract. So this team that's clearly in full-blown rebuild and transition now can address other positions and not have to worry about quarterback. And they've got so many other areas that they could use help out in the roster. To me, it's a huge advantage for them. And going into a draft, frankly, where there's no, just stand up, there's no Joe Burrow, Andrew Luck type sure thing. I think Shough definitely gives them the luxury of not having to worry about that.
And we're going to bring on Rod Walker and go with three of us here for a few minutes. Rod is writing the column for this game. And Rod, that kind of brings up another point. Jeff and I were just talking about how well Tyler Shough played, and you can certainly comment on that if you want. But you're writing about Kellen Moore. And, I think Kellen Moore, as a rookie head coach, we're not having hot seat conversations or anything, but he had been underwhelming thus far this year. I thought he was really good today, and he got a win that he probably needed.
Yeah, that was one of the things, we kind of talked about on the podcast the other day, like the rest of the season. Like, obviously you want to see if Tyler Shough's a guy, you want to see how these rookies are. But for me, Kellen Moore was like, we need to see some improvements from him as well. And I think today he had a really good command of the game. He had a good plan, and the plan worked. And I think this is a win that he needed. I think this is kind of a signature win. I mean, this isn't, you didn't beat the Detroit Lions or anything, but I mean, I think this is still a good win for him.
Did he take his shirt off in the post-game locker room? I didn't see. Did he? Probably not.
No, they asked Tyler Shough about it. I mean, he says his normal self, man. That guy doesn't change much now. You wouldn't know if they won or lost just based on Kellen Moore. You better look for somebody else to see.
Kellen Moore's not taking like the buses on victory laps around Raymond James Stadium or anything like Peyton would do and rubbing it in. I mean, he's probably exactly the way he was last week. And There's something to be said for that. But man, the guy just he'd be a good poker player.
Rod, real quick, your impressions on Tyler Shough. We were just talking about, the future, and the Saints. I think at this point, it's got to be pretty well agreed upon that you're going to keep riding Tyler Shough at least into 2026, and we'll see what happens after that. But I don't know, seeing what he's doing, that there would be a lot of appetite for bringing in another rookie quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and again, I thought he looked really good against Carolina, but I thought today he took showed another side of his game with what he was able to do with his legs. I mean, we knew he was really athletic, and this is why the Saints thought so highly of him. And I think we're starting to see that the more he plays, and that's kind of what you want to see him just continue to progress as the season goes on. And he's still doing this behind an offensive line that's kind of pieced together. So, I mean, I think you're starting to see the connections with which we've been waiting on all year, and we saw it last week. We saw it again today. So I think things are starting to come together for him.
Yeah, I think so. And the other part of that is Saints need help in a lot of other places. You don't need to go chase your quarterback if you've got what looks like a good one in-house. And you talked about the line, like Tali Fuaga was out today. Asim Richards left with an injury, I think, early fourth quarter. So the Saints had to play the fourth quarter with their third string right tackle, which is never a good thing, but they made it work. And then they need weapons. Like Roderick here, different Roderick, but Rod says need an offensive weapon. Jeremiah Smith of Ohio State's not eligible for the draft. He's still a year away, but that type of player, like, yeah, you could see that helping the Saints a lot more than a quarterback right now.
Yeah. And I think what we saw in Devin Neal today was pretty promising as well. I mean, we've kind of talked about, Alvin Kamara getting older and Kendrick Miller can't stay healthy, but I think Devin Neal showed a lot of promise today as well, and that's a good thing. Jeff probably don't want to hear that because that takes away from his Jeremiah love.
I was just saying, man, nobody's giving love to my Jeremiah Love, proposition. But I think this, and I know we're going to talk about this in the future, but what Shough gives you now is flexibility. I don't think you have to worry about quarterback, and now you can go in a bunch of different directions. Maybe you just stay true to your board. It'll be interesting to see how they address free agency before they get to the draft, what areas they elect to try and fill through the veteran ranks. But this gives you so much more flexibility that you don't have to worry about the most pressing need on the roster.
Yeah, absolutely. Devin Neal's numbers, by the way, finishes with 70 yards rushing on 19 carries. So he was a workhorse today. Is that a season high for a Saints running back, 19 carries in one game? I don't know that we've seen that yet. Also caught
it's definitely a career high for Neal, for sure.
Yeah. No doubt about it. And so he comes up with 84 yards of offense. Nothing super impressive, but like he caught that screen pass and converted a third down on the Saints' last touchdown drive. That was pretty good. And Jeff, by the way, as for Jeremiah Love, the team can't even make the college football playoff, man. I don't know what the Saints would be doing drafting that guy. I'm not getting the reaction out of you.
No. Look, here's the thing that I think Devin Neal is a solid player, but I think the Saints have a lot of solid players. I think they need, with this pick, it's going to probably be a top 5 pick. They need an elite playmaker, whatever side of the ball it is. They've got to get somebody that's a difference maker. They really don't have it. Now, what I would say about Neal on that play you referenced, Zach, that little dump off to him, he had to make somebody miss an open field. He hasn't done much of that, and he did on that play. That was a big play. It got them a first down where he really should have been tackled before that. And that was a play in the open field. We really haven't seen a whole lot of him. So I like what I saw from him today. He's a very solid player. You kind of know what you're getting with him, but I'm not sure he's the kind of guy people are worried about game planning for. And I think they need guys like that going forward, whatever side of the ball you want to talk about.
I just saw a message at the bottom. I think that was Zach's or something about Ahmad Hardy. Did you see that?
Ahmad Hardy next year? Yeah, I don't know. We need Ahmad Hardy. Again, he's another guy not eligible until next year. But, yeah, there's explosive guys in college. The Saints could use one of them at one point. I personally am not a guy who's going to take a running back in the top 10 of the draft. I don't know that I would ever do that unless maybe like if you're the Rams and you have a top 10 pick because you traded for it in a previous year and you actually have a good roster. But I don't think you put a great running back on a roster that has all these holes. I just don't think that's the right move. But
we'll talk about that in the future. We'll debate that leading up.
We got 5 months to talk draft. As Northern Saints says, the Titans won today. So the Saints are not out of the running or anything for the number 1 pick. I think the New York Giants would have it if the season ended today. But the Saints, again, the schedule's pretty easy. I don't know that the Saints are going to lift out or anything, but we'll see where the dust settles at the end of the season. Northern Saint also mentions Taysom. I didn't think Taysom looked very good today. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, it was true. He had a tackle, I think, on a kickoff return or a punt return or something. But offensively, I didn't think he didn't bring much to the table today.
He had a nice block on Neal's longest run, a 21-yard run. He kind of sealed the edge on that. So he probably he kind of did some behind-the-scenes stuff. But the days of Taysom Hill, ball carrier running for 100 yards, I wonder if those days are over. He also may not be completely healthy, but he finishes just 2 carries, -1 yards today, did not catch a pass. He was targeted twice. So, not a huge day for this offense, really. Your leading receiver was Devon Vele, 3 catches for 40 yards. Jawan Johnson and Chris Olave both go over 30 yards, but that's it. Only 13 completions. Devin Neal runs for 70. but it was a lot of Shough running, and then it was also I think we got to mention the field position, right? I mean, the Saints got the big kick return from Mason Tipton to start the day and started their first drive at the Bucs 45, and then they had a couple of turnovers on downs near midfield. I think 3 of them actually that set them up. I mean, they had 3 drives, I think 50 yards or shorter, Rod, that makes your job a lot easier as an offense. And that's how you can win a game only with 260 yards of offense or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I mentioned the other day was the key to games. I thought they needed to get off to a good start, and they were able to do that. So once they checked that box, I think they got a little confidence going. But yeah, the defense really stepped up on all those fourth down stops. Granderson had the first, and Kool-Aid had the big one late in the game. So this is probably, I would say, this is definitely the most complimentary game they played as far as all phases of the game. I mean, Charlie Shough did miss a field goal, but he also made just one.
Made one. And it was a long field goal in the rain. I mean, that's one of those ones you kind of, and he barely missed it.
He had the kickoff. The kickoff was bad at the end, but I don't know. That could have been weather related. But I mean, he didn't get it to the landing zone, which gave Tampa the ball at the 40. So outside of that, I thought this was a really good overall game for the Saints in all phases of the game.
I like that you wrote about Kellen Moore because I thought he really called a good game in the conditions. Right, he probably didn't go into this game thinking, "Oh my God, it's going to be a deluge." I mean, I was at my Fox 8 spot earlier today, and the weather forecast was like, "Yeah, it might rain here and there," but no one was predicting it to rain like that. I mean, that was a deluge for most of the day, and that had to affect how he called the game. And I think he did a good job adjusting, and I think he controlled that game once they got the lead. And that's just something they really haven't had a lot of experience doing this year. And again, I thought those key third down conversions by Shough, those were really nice play calls dialed up by Kellen Moore. But both those guys were wide open in the middle of the Tampa Bay defense. That's good play design by Kellen Moore.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's a good outdoor coach, man. When you start playing home games at Tad Gormley or Yeoman, man.
Open the roof.
Tad Gormley. Oh my God. It'll be interesting to see how many people come out now for this game against Carolina, because we were talking about that, right? If they would have lost this game, that game could have been pretty desolate here the next couple of weeks, the home games. Now I think there might be a little momentum and energy in the building.
And I'll tell you, Tampa Bay fans are hoping the Saints can go ahead and do them another favor and beat Carolina after they lost, because those teams now tied for first place. And I don't know who has the tiebreaker at the moment. It doesn't really matter because they still have 2 games left against each other. They play I think they play week 16 and week 18. 2 of the last 3 games of the year are Panthers-Bucs. So Bucs will certainly be rooting for the Saints next week, and then we'll see about the head-to-heads. Okay, we got a question from Northern Saint, needs to be addressed. Why do y'all have bookcases and plaques on your back walls? It's because we're accomplished and well-read, Northern Saint. What do you have on your wall? What's your Zoom background, man? We're accomplished and well-read. That's the short answer.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even know what else to put back there. What do you
want? Playboy centerfolds or something? Is that what you have, Northern Saint?
I'm going to put a mirror back there, and it'll really just mess with everybody. You got to look at reflections.
Trying to fool people into thinking we're well read, right?
That's right.
No, but look, at least we appreciate you watching, and I think there's going to be some enthusiasm now, like Rob was saying, down the stretch. There's a little hope right now for the Saints, and we haven't seen much of that in a while.
Yeah, no doubt.
One win will do, huh? One win changes everything.
Yeah, it was a good day in New Orleans. I mean, Tulane got their first college football playoff berth. The Sugar Bowl ended up getting the matchup they want. They're going to get Georgia coming here. The Saints won. It's been a while. I mean, it's been a rough football season, so New Orleans is kind of overdue for some good football news.
Yeah, certainly. And I was going to say this: the Saints could sell out Tad Gormley next weekend. I'm sure of that. I don't know about the Superdome, but they'll.
I was going to say Card and St. Aug will probably fill up the Superdome Saturday anyway. So,
no, that's true. That's a good point. I would kind of a word of warning here. The last time that the Saints did this, they beat Carolina before the bye, and everybody thinks, oh, there's the light at the end of the tunnel. Tyler Shough is the guy, and this is going to work. And then they had their bye week, and we got to kind of sing their praises for 2 weeks. And then they laid an egg and lost to the Falcons in a game that really wasn't all that competitive. They didn't look good. I mean, I wouldn't sit here and say that the Saints have turned a corner, but they're at least showing signs that this is in them, which we didn't see a lot in the first half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the first time this is the first time we've seen this kind of performance against a good team, bad conditions. And this is a game you had to want to win. You couldn't just, if you let go of the rope, I mean, you'd have just lost the game. But I mean, they kept battling and coming up with plays and making plays when they needed to. So I think this is an impressive win. I think it's the best one Moore's had out of this three.
And we're starting to see some kind of things to build on, right? I mean, the defense is playing well pretty consistently now. You kind of know what you've got on with that defense. I think Brandon Staley's done a really good job. And the veteran leaders on that defense, I think, have done a good job. DeMario, Cam Jordan, the veteran guys kept that group together. And they're playing without both their safeties today. And they overcame all that. And they've been playing good football for a month now. And we're finally seeing now with Shough's development, the offense making a few plays here and there. And you can see light at the end of the tunnel. You can see a path out of this kind of dismal season.
What's a reasonable prediction for the Saints for the final 4 games? We mentioned the schedule is so bad. Panthers at home, who they've already beat. Jets are a wreck. Titans are the worst team in the league, and the Falcons are a wreck. They're not going to go 0-4. I also think 4-0 is crazy to expect with how inconsistent they are. But is a 3-1 finish here out of the question, Rod?
No, I think 3-1 is possible. And I may push it to 4-0, man. I just
careful.
I mean, I think if they win next week, I think I'm probably going to lean towards 4-0 if they can beat Carolina again in a game that's obviously going to be really meaningful for the Panthers. I mean, if they can take care of them at home, I mean, I think they do go 4-0 the rest of the way.
Yeah, it's tough to say, man. I just after what happened after Carolina, I'm a little worried. This is kind of a weird game too. That I don't want to take anything away from them because I thought it was their best win of the year, but it was a little bit weird. There were some things kind of went their way for once, and they're overdue for some breaks. The Bucs player dropped that interception right at the very end. I mean, that was one in the past that the opponent makes, and you had a few of those things go their way. And they're not going to get this type of conditions today. And look, I go back to what I'm saying. The Bucs are a team. If I had to bet right now, give me your Zach Ewing, your Carolina Panthers to win the division, because it's certainly I think they're playing the best football right now. Tampa Bay's kind of reeling. I mean, they were all out to beat Arizona last week in a game they had to have. I just don't see it from them right now. I think Carolina's got the momentum. They're pointing up. I think Tampa Bay's on the way down, and Atlanta's in complete free fall.
Yeah, the Bucs, by the way, have to turn around and play Thursday night against Atlanta, and they're banged up. Tristan Wirfs didn't play today. I wonder if they thought, let's hold him out, get him healthy for Thursday, and we'll try to beat the Saints without him. And that obviously backfired on him. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Those teams, like I said, still have 2 games left, so this is really going to come down to the head-to-head. The Panthers' other game is against Seattle, just probably an advantage for Tampa Bay. I think I'd still take Tampa if we had to bet head-to-head. Tampa's 4th game is they have the Falcons, and they also have the Dolphins left. Rod, who are you taking in the NFC South?
Who's Carolina's other game against? Seattle.
So Carolina,
Bucs,
Saints,
and who else?
Yeah, the Bucs twice.
Yeah.
Well, the Bucs have Atlanta and Miami plus the Saints plus the Panthers twice.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna lean toward the Bucs by a game.
I still think they've got an advantage, but Jeff's laying it down. He's taking Carolina.
Yeah, maybe be a Clancy's bet on this one too.
Hey, all I'm saying about Clancy's, when we're talking about Clancy's and bold predictions, there is one guy on our panel whose bold prediction still has life. Tyler Shough needs a Rookie of the Year vote, baby. Can we make that happen?
I think you have the best shot. Although I would say I think if Kendra didn't get hurt, I would have going to win that bet, unfortunately. But anyway,
maybe
I do. I think Carolina's. I may have to double down on that. But look, going back also to what we were talking about earlier with the Saints, they had a really good game plan defensively. They attacked that backup left tackle. If you notice, they did a lot of stunts over on that side, really caused him problems. Tristan Wirfs would not have been the guy they were attacking. So credit again to Brandon Staley and that staff for going after him, because a couple of those short yardage plays were made against that left tackle, stuff he was not prepared for. I thought they took advantage of his inexperience.
Yeah, 100%. All right, we are waiting on Luke Johnson and Matthew Paris to join us live from Tampa here on the Saints Insider postgame show. You're just going to go through some of the defensive stats since you were talking defense there, Jeff. Kool-Aid McKinstry, 7 tackles. How about that from the second-year corner? He also had a big pass deflection. He was the one who laid the hit on, was it Cameron Johnson, who looked like he had caught that 4th and 2 pass from about midfield, and this was when the game was tied. And instead, Kool-Aid comes up, big hit, jars the ball loose. Saints go down and score the touchdown. It's a game like this where you kind of forget about some of those plays. Carl Granderson made a couple of huge plays in the first half, including a 7-yard tackle for loss on Devin Neal in the on a 4th and 1. Devon Godshaw had a tackle for loss. I think Carl Granderson had 2 actually. Demario Davis gets credit for the tackle on Kate Otten there at the end, and he also had a 4th down stop. Like it was a pretty widespread effort from this defense.
Yeah, and I come to the game, I was a little concerned with the issues at safety. I just thought, I thought Tampa Bay would take advantage of it, and obviously the weather kind of helps, so they can't take those deep shots like they probably normally would. But I thought they had a really good game plan, and you go back to the first game against the Bucs. I mean, they kind of kept Baker in check in that game as well. So 2 games against a guy who was an MVP candidate to start the season, and the Saints held their own both times.
And he has caused the Saints nightmares the past 3 years since he got to Tampa. Like Dennis Allen's defenses could not stop that guy, but the Saints have done well this year. And really that's like, how about some credit for Brandon Staley, Jeff? I mean, his unit has really improved throughout the year. They've had some injuries. They've not slowed down. Cam Jordan almost tipped up an interception to himself today. I mean, like that guy's having a renaissance. You still got DeMario playing well. And this unit looks like it's really improving.
Yeah, I mean, Carl Granderson he was having like an NFC Player of the Week type of performance in the first half. He was making every play. That's the best he's played in a while. That front 7 came to play today. They were really disruptive, got after Tampa Bay up front, and I think won the game for the Saints. And we've talked all season long about how like that unit has kind of underperformed. They've just been kind of meh the whole season. But today they were difference makers up front. Huge plays and short yardage. As you said, I think they got their hands on 2 or 3 of Baker's passes. Really, I thought the secondary has been quietly good for a while now. They're sticky in coverage, and McKinstry's kind of turning the corner as the number 1 guy back there.
Yeah, there was the one play I thought that should have been I can't remember who was on it. Probably should have been a pass interference. I thought the Saints might have caught a break on it. Somebody was going
Michael
to the end zone.
Yeah,
I think it was Michael Johnson. That's what it was. Yeah. On that play, I thought they may have got away with one on that one, but outside of that, I thought they held their own.
All right, we are going to let Rod and Jeff go. We just got Matthew Paris live from Tampa, but thank you, gentlemen. And Rod, we'll look forward to your column. You can read it at NOLA.com/Saints. All right. And we'll bring in Matt Paris. Do we have him now? Oh, here he is.
I think you do, but there we go.
There we go. Matt, live from Raymond James Stadium there in Tampa, Florida. And I think, I don't know, pretty clearly for me, but what do you think most impressive Saints performance of the season?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this was kind of validation for the Saints that their process, to use the Kellen Moore term, it was coming together. To play spoiler or this late in the season again against a divisional rival, to have some impressive things come out of this game, whether it was Tyler Shough, whether it was the defense really excelling in some key areas. Like, this is kind of what you were looking for. This is what you want to build on late in the season, and I think the Saints found that today.
Talk to me about Tyler Shough. What were people saying about him after the game, and what did you think on statistically not like a huge day or anything? He had 144 yards, only 13 completions, but he ran for 55 yards, ran for the 2 touchdowns, and just generally came up with plays when they were needed.
Yeah, it was the legs part of Tyler Shuck's game that I think really impressed everyone today. To be able to make those plays, particularly that 34-yard touchdown. Foster Moreau kind of indicated that that wasn't necessarily how that play was drawn up, even in terms of like the quarterback keeper. He didn't really expand on how it was supposed to go originally, but it was, I think, really indicative of how he's able to read a defense, his athleticism, and I think you saw after that run, it kind of opened up the rest of the run game for New Orleans, and the run game looked much better after that because I think Tampa was just hesitating even a split second to see if Shough was going to keep the ball and take off. So uh, I think those things are really important for New Orleans, and I think he only had a 65 passer rating, but was it the most impressive ever? I mean, probably hyperbole, but it was. I'm. This was the game that I wasn't on the fence about Tyler Shough, but I just thought, if you're gonna avoid drafting a quarterback next year, like you need these type of performances to kind of push you over the finish line to help make an answer. And I think it's, there's still 4 games left, but this was a big one for him.
Yeah, there was a play late third, early fourth, not sure, where it's third down and Shough changes the play at the line with really less than 10 seconds on the play clock, is still able to communicate the play, get the play off in time, and then complete a pass, I think, to Juwan Johnson for a first down. It's that type of thing that you need your quarterback to kind of take over as a coach on the field sometimes and say, no, what we called isn't going to work. I know what to do. And he seemed like he was in that mold today.
Yeah, I mean, I remember talking to it's Miller Moss, right? Is Louisville's?
Yes.
Yeah, so he was at the Manning Passing Academy, and I was talking to him about Tyler all the way back in July. And one of the underrated things he was saying is that like Tyler's feel for changing a play to get up. He was talking about specifically the run game, but to get them into certain run situations was really like kind of the secret sauce to Louisville's offense last year. And I think you are seeing that now with New Orleans. It's not necessarily just checking into run plays. It's just having that feel for the game. We talked a lot about in the pre-draft process about Tyler Shuck's age and whether that would be an advantage coming in at age 26. And I think it is. I mean, I think that part of his game has kind of been answered. He's had a maturity. He's been able to read these defenses, and you've seen kind of the physical traits or the NFL speed kind of catch up with him here, which was kind of the hurdle early on, which is why he didn't see the field until the first, through the first 9 games or whatever it was.
Yeah, and I thought, speaking of the running game, again, not overly impressive. They did run for 139 yards, but it took them 32 carries. I think that 32 maybe is the most important number. They were able to commit to it. We talked about the Bucs run defense and how that could be a bad matchup for the Saints. You add in bad weather, and it's like, well, boy, how are they going to move the ball? Well, they stuck with the run, and they were able to do well enough behind Devin Neal, Tyler Shough, even Audric Estime, I think, had a 9-yard run in there. Like that was pretty good behind a makeshift offensive line as well.
Yeah, and I think this is where Kellen Moore deserves credit for this because they came into the game looking like they wanted to pass all afternoon. And that was kind of the theme from the first outing, if you remember, is Kellen faced a lot of questions of, why didn't you stick with the run in the first half when it was working? They obviously had to pass in the first game when they got behind, but there were still like plenty of opportunities to run the ball in the first meeting. And I thought early on it was going to be kind of the same story again, but it really started raining. Kellen adapted, and you hear a lot going back to before they got here, perceptions of Kellen Moore as like this really great adapted to his personnel within the flow of a game, and I think you saw that today, being able to kind of abandon this pass happy game plan that he had coming in to really stick with the run, and it made a difference in the end.
And on the other side of the ball, Saints defense did cede some ground at times, but man, did they come up huge, especially short yardage situations. 3 stops on either 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 all of them at midfield that gives the offense short field. I mean, that like you can't say enough about the times those guys stepped up today.
Yeah, no, and going back to the first meeting, like I feel like that had a clear impact on how this one was going. Like because the way that the Saints stuffed them on in the end zone, like the first meeting, and kind of dominated those short situations. Like Granderson said that like he anticipated them running outside because they had been so successful um, stuffing them inside. He said they stuffed them like a turkey. Was a phrase that he used, which is a good quote. And probably going to be my lead after the game. Spoiler, but um, yeah, it was just a really impressive performance. Really, the Saints changed their defensive line a lot before the season in terms of the interior, and I don't know necessarily how Gotcha played today specifically, but I just think from like an alignment standpoint, they're just so much more disciplined on the inside, which has really freed up those edge rushers to kind of make plays too. I think it's all really working well together, and they kind of establish that dominance today.
All right, he is Matthew Paris. We're going to let him go right, as you mentioned, a late Thanksgiving for the Saints. They stuffed a turkey today and get a victory at Tampa Bay. Thanks, Matt.
All right, thanks.
All right, we'll bring on Luke Johnson, who is there in the press box in Tampa Bay. You can watch. Is that Bears Packers? We can watch behind you as we go here.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm violating any NFL rules by showing that, but we'll try to get the framing right here.
First of all, a sloppy game weather-wise, and maybe the Saints catch some breaks and everything, but this one felt like a statement for this franchise to say, hey, we're still here and we're coming, and maybe there is light at the end of this tunnel. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I totally agree. Look, like we've talked about this ad nauseum, right? Like this is a team that's been eliminated from the playoffs. It's a team that nobody had any real expectations for coming into this year. So they needed to get some games like this where they're punching above their weight and they're like, we're not going to go down easy. We've got some guys who can play, and I think specifically for somebody like Tyler Shough, I mean that was a statement game for him today. I think maybe even more so than Carolina. This is granted it's a team that the Bucs have not been like this juggernaut this year, but this is a team that's won the last 4 division titles. And to come in here on the road, make a huge play in the fourth quarter to go win the game, to have 2 touchdown runs today, I thought played pretty well as a passer despite the conditions today. Statement game for him, and for the organization as well, just for setting themselves up for the future here.
Yeah, and on offense specifically, a lot of credit to go around. I thought Kellen Moore called a good game. I thought we saw Devin Neal show that he could be a part of this team's future. But most importantly is Tyler Shough, right? And yeah, he doesn't have a huge day statistically, but able to make big plays when he had to, particularly with his legs.
Yeah, let me tell you, man. Like I don't know what it looked like on the broadcast, but that was not fun conditions to play offensive football in today, unless you're like a running back, right? So I think I was really, really impressed by what he did today. Even though they weren't able to go and put that game away with a 4-minute drive at the end, like there was still like 2 huge clutch third down throws that he made on that drive, to get chains moving, to keep the clock running, to where if Tampa was going to win it, they were going to have to go 80 yards inside the final 2 minutes. Yeah, there's just so much to like from that game, and it's not perfect yet by any stretch. There was a miscommunication on the interception where he just basically just threw a jump ball up to the corner. There's some throws that I'm sure he'd like to have back. There were some sacks I'm sure he'd like to have backs, but like, man, like how long has it been since like we've watched a Saints quarterback go win a game in the fourth quarter? I mean, it's been since Drew, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure Carr even has one. He had a couple close calls, but not where they won.
Yeah, like there was, Carr had like his very first game where he put the game away, in the fourth quarter. But to see a Saints quarterback go win it and to have that guy be a rookie, I feel really, really good about that right now.
You see, we got a comment here from R.A. Son. Do you think Mendoza? I just think that narrative is over. I don't think that drafting a quarterback is something that is the best thing for this franchise if we continue to see this kind of progress from Shough.
Yeah, like I'll say this. I don't think it's over, right? Like I think they're gonna evaluate everything this offseason. And Chuck certainly has 4 more games left to have defenses see what he can do and game plan for him, and maybe he turns into a pumpkin. We just don't know. But like I don't know, if it was me, I feel pretty good about it right now. And if you got a guy who's he's a second round rookie. If you got that guy who you're building around, I mean, he's not going to make more than like $2 million over the course of his rookie contract.
Mm.
He's a guy who you got with the 40th overall pick. Like that's a huge advantage to building a roster out. And if he's showing you signs he can be a franchise quarterback, you got to try that. Even if there's things that are not perfect about the situation with him being 26 years old and all that stuff, like that's such a huge advantage if that works out, in my opinion. We'll see what the Saints do this offseason. I'm sure they're going to evaluate the quarterbacks. If they're picking in the top 5, I'm sure they're going to have guys at IU's pro day, and everything like that. So it's part of the business. But I would feel pretty good about Tyler Shough if I'm the Saints right now.
Yeah, absolutely. On the other side of the ball, the defense, again, the Bucs are dealing with those conditions too, and so that probably helps you as a defense. But I'll tell you what, on 4th and short, the way they played today, stuffing the run a couple times, getting the Kool-Aid McKinstry makes the big hit on Cameron Johnson to jar the ball loose on the other 4th down. Like those plays decided this game, because I think the Saints scored touchdowns, or maybe a touchdown and a field goal at least, off of 2 of those short fields too. So just game-winning plays.
Yeah, I think this defense has really been playing. It's been playing really good ball for a number of weeks now. And Alontae Taylor said it after the game. He's like, we're out of the playoffs. Our goal is to go be a top 10 defense. And as ridiculous as that sounds, they're not that far off. They played a really good game against Tampa today, and I'm looking it up here. They were coming in today's game, the number 12 total defense. They're right up there in scoring defense. I think they're pretty good. And this is a unit that's like kind of incomplete still. It's Brandon Staley running his scheme with Dennis Allen's players for the most part. So I think they should feel pretty good about that too. Again, this is the 3-10 football team we're talking about. Like you're just looking for areas where you can feel some optimism about the future, and I think that's definitely one of them for me. I thought their young corners played really good football today. They got lucky a few times. Mecca Ibuka dropped a wide open touchdown, would have tied the game in the 4th quarter. And they maybe got bailed out on a penalty or two. There was one late in the game on Michael Davis that could have been a PI if the officials wanted to throw the flag, but they made the plays when it counted. And Demario Davis said after the game, he's like, they went out there. They've been like chomping at the bit to have a 2-minute defensive drive because they haven't been in those positions at all this year. And he's like, it was over before I knew it. Tampa ran 4 plays. How many people were like watching that game, being like, "Oh, Tampa's going to go win it here"?
Yeah.
We got Baker Mayfield and this offense. They're going to find it in the final 2 minutes and go win it. They didn't get 10 yards. I thought that defense played a really good game today.
I'm glad you mentioned the Ibuka drop, because we hadn't actually done that yet, and he kind of toasted the secondary on that play, one of their few coverage busts, and then just drops the pass. And you're like, as a Bucs fan, you can just feel their frustration in that moment. But to the Saints' credit, you have to take advantage of that opportunity, and they really did not give them another chance after that to win this game. So, Luke, before we let you go, the final 4 games here are like, no one's penciling in 4 victories for the Saints, because we saw what happened the last time they had a big road win. They came home and kind of laid an egg against Atlanta. But these are all winnable games. You have home games against the Panthers. Saints already beat them by 10 points on the road. The Jets quarterback situation is a total mess right now. The Titans may be the worst team in the league despite a win today. And then the Falcons, who are a mess as well, and maybe a chance for some revenge there. Like, without counting any chickens or anything, this is a chance for the Saints to build toward a strong finish.
You're not going to get me to do this again, man. You're right. You are correct. The Saints definitely have an opportunity in front of them to feel really good about where they're at going into 2026. Yeah, they're playing a bunch of teams within their peer group, maybe with the exception of the Carolina Panthers, who they already did beat. You know, if they lose to them, I think everybody would be like, yeah, kind of expected that. But like, you got to remember, this is a 3-10 football team that is capable of losing any game it plays. So like, if they go out and lay an egg against the New York Jets, and everybody's like, we should have hired Aaron Glenn, like that's totally within the realm of possibility here. So it is definitely in front of them to go out there and to make people feel good about this team going into the long months of February, March, April, and all that. But they got to go out and do it, because every time we've started to feel a little bit better about this team, they've pulled us right back down in the mud and said, you're going to stay here for a little while.
Words of wisdom and perspective from our very own Luke Johnson. Luke will have a story up on NOLA.com/Saints soon. Thanks for joining us, Luke.
My pleasure. See you.
He's Luke Johnson, and we will wrap things up on the Saints Insider postgame show here. The Saints beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 24-20. How about that? I think Northern Saint, you're always popping off about something. I lost a bet or something. You don't like my haircut, but I didn't lose a bet. But I'll tell you what I did lose was my survivor pool, because I was in one of those situations. I was a little bit stuck in Tampa Bay. I had them left, and I thought, okay, well, I think the Saints will be competitive, but I better use the Bucs here. And now I am out of that survivor pool. So the Saints got me. The Saints got the Bucs. They've really turned this NFC South race into a pretty exciting 4-week sprint here for Tampa Bay and Carolina. Again, the Bucs, they got to play Thursday night. I don't know what they're going to do about that field. They got to play a home game there in 4 days. That field was completely torn up by the end. To that point, Northern Saint, you said the weather have an effect. Sure, the weather had an effect on the outcome. Of course it did. But both teams are playing in the same weather, right? And the difference was the Saints were making plays on both sides of the ball, and the Tampa Bay Bucs did not make enough. Zealous says he liked the fight in the team despite being 2-10. And that's we, even in some losses, I feel like the effort has always been there for this team. And that is a credit to Kellen Moore. It's a credit to Brandon Staley, because defense is where you most often see effort or lack thereof. And it's also a credit to the leaders on this team, Demario Davis and Cam Jordan. You could not have expected this good of season. I don't care how optimistic you are. If we're talking in July or August and you say Demario Davis and Cam Jordan are both just going to be, I don't know, top half players at their position. Is that fair to say? It certainly is for Demario. Cam is not quite as involved, but like, he's still making plays. He's got 6.5 sacks, and he also had the pass deflection today that almost turned into an interception that would have won the game probably right then and there. And I think the fight is a really good sign. I think that is a good sign going forward for this franchise. Rayson says he's beefing up the defense to make them more fierce, but you do need to get a QB to make Shough really earn it. I mean, I don't know, man. If you're talking about a top 10 pick, I'm not I'm not using a top 10 pick on a quarterback just to provide competition for a guy who just had a pretty good rookie season. I would do other things. You could use an edge rusher. Again, Cam's not going to be around forever. Who knows about next year, even for him. Granderson and Chase Young are fine. You could use just a guy who's a star at that position. You could also use more offensive line help. You could use a star receiver. You could probably use a running back. And so at some point, maybe you take a top pick and trade back and try to fill 2 or 3 holes. Not something Mickey Loomis and Jeff Ireland have done in the past, really ever. But they've also not been in this situation in the past where they have a really high pick and they have a roster with a bunch of holes. So this is the type of situation where you would see that for the first time. Rayson says if Mendoza was in last year's draft, you're taking him over Shough. Well, yeah, but if Mendoza's in last year's draft, you'd have to take him at number 9, and then you don't get Kelvin Banks, who may be your left tackle of the future. So that's a hypothetical that we don't necessarily need to get into. But the story of the day today is that the Saints had a great performance in tough conditions. Certainly a situation where they could have sort of just tucked tail and let the Bucs get away with a win and called it. But it's the Buccaneers. Who have won this division 4 straight years. This is not really a changing of the guard moment or anything. In fact, Rod and Jeff and I were talking about it. I still think the Bucs win the division because I think they can beat Carolina straight up. And even if they split those 2 games, they've got the Falcons and Dolphins left, while the Panthers have The Saints, okay. Panthers will be favored in that game. Probably should win in New Orleans, but that looks more difficult than it did previously. And the Bucs are at the Dolphins, so maybe that's similar. But then the Panthers' other game is against Seattle, who looks like one of the very best teams in the NFL. So I think the Bucs still have a small edge in this one. And again, we'll see. That's a big game on Thursday for the Bucs because the secondary tiebreaker is division record. And right now, I believe both the Panthers and Bucs are 2-1 in the division. Actually, the Panthers are 3-1 in the division. So the Bucs need that win to equal the Panthers on division record. And then if the teams split, I don't know where the tiebreaker goes after that, if I'm being honest. I don't know if it goes to common opponents or to conference record. I'm not sure where it would go after that. But if the Bucs were to lose to Atlanta on Thursday night, then Carolina does have an advantage. Then maybe all they need to do is split with the Bucs, and they can win this division. So maybe, look, Carolina, a team that's gone through a couple rough years, and they kind of put it together this season. Maybe that's next year for the Saints. We saw some signs today that it certainly could be. And the upshot was a 24-20 New Orleans Saints victory. And we will wrap up this Saints Insider postgame show there. We will have a full episode for you on Wednesday. That is December the 10th. That's the next time we will have a Saints Insider. Until then, keep it locked to NOLA.com/Saints for all of your Saints coverage and much more. Of course, NOLA.com subscription gets you all the news that's going on around the state government, down in New Orleans as well. And all the features, all the recipes, all that kind of stuff. And it gets you all the Saints, all the sports coverage, not just the Saints, but Tulane in the college football playoff. LSU, as they try to rebuild their coaching staff and roster going into next year, and they play in a bowl game against University of Houston here at the end of the month. So we will cover all of that stuff, but our stuff is at NOLA.com/Saints. We will be back with you on Wednesday. And until then, our thanks to Jeff Duncan, Rod Walker, Matthew Perez, and Luke Johnson for stopping by. And of course, thanks to you all for hanging out. Saints win. They're 3-10. Beat the Bucs.